When he moved his attentions to the young Catherine Howard, who would be his next wife, he wasted no time in seeking an annulment of his marriage with Anne. Anne did not argue with Henry's choice to move forward with the annulment of their marriage at all. She had been forewarned of his plans before she was informed formally, upon which she accepted the news calmly and without a change in her demeanor. On the day the marriage was annulled, Henry wrote, "You shall find us a perfect friend, content to repute you as our dearest sister. We shall, within 5 or 6 days, determine your state, minding to endow you with £4,000 yearly revenue, your loving brother and friend." That £4,000 in today's currency would be roughly £1,685,428 per year. She also received multiple properties, including the Boleyn family home of Hever Castle and Richmond Palace. She was considered the king's sister, attended different celebrations at Henry's palaces, and even went to Christmas one year and danced with Catherine Howard. She would outlive all of Henry's other wives and use her position and newfound comfort in order to avoid remarrying. So, probably the most unlucky of all of Henry's wives is Catherine Howard. Her motto is "No other wish but his." She's often represented as somewhat of a lusty, airheaded teen, given her age and the tragic way in which she met her end. However, I think this does discredit her to some extent. Catherine, a cousin to Anne Boleyn, had a very short childhood. Both of her parents died when she was relatively young, and she was sent to live with her step grandmother, Agnes Howard, the Dowager Duchess of Norfolk, until she came of age. During her time in her step grandmother's household, she was molested by her music teacher Henry Mannix, and entered into another illicit and possibly non-consensual relationship with Francis Derham, a gentleman servitor to the Duchess. She later caught the king's eye when she was sent to be a lady in waiting to Anne of Cleves when Anne came to court to marry Henry. Catherine wasn't a complete fool, as she was well aware that if the king were to find out about her past, she would be in some sort of trouble. She had, after all, seduced him under the guise of being a young, innocent noblewoman. Her affair with Thomas Culpeper would be the event to truly seal her fate and rid her of any influence she once had. Though she didn't have nearly enough experience during her life to wield as much influence and prove herself as her peers did, Catherine did so in her death as best as she could. So before her execution, she asked that her possessions be given to her attendants after she died. The merchant Otwell Johnson was present at her execution, and in a letter written to his brother, described how the Queen made the most godly and Christian end, and related how Catherine asked all Christian people to take regard unto her worthy and just punishment with death for her offences against God, and heinously from her youth upward, in breaking all of his commandments, and also against the King's royal majesty very dangerously. She was Henry's rose without a thorn. Finally, we come to Catherine Parr, the final wife. Her motto is to be useful in all that I do. By the time Henry developed an interest in Catherine Parr in 1543, she was twice widowed, and she was about 30 years old with no formal place at court and a comfortable amount of money. So after she married the king, she used her considerable sway over him to convince him to allow his daughters back into the line of succession. Aside from family, religion was also really important to Catherine. By 1545, she started publishing her own works, and she was an extreme religious reformist and Protestant. So she didn't publish her most radical work until after Henry's death, but that's probably because she had a really dangerous experience with him during their marriage due to religion. So in May of 1546, Stephen Gardiner, a religious conservative and the Bishop of Winchester, arrested the outspoken religious reformer Anne Askew and tortured her for information on her followers. Every name she gave was a member of Catherine's close social circle, and this prompted Gardiner to ask the king's permission to arrest the queen, or at least look into her and make sure that she wasn't being a heretic. So one night, when a member of Catherine's household stumbled upon the papers that were written against her, Catherine broke down. And the next day, Henry attempted to trap her in a religious conversation and basically just trip her up in front of him. Catherine read the situation instead and stated, "Yet must I and will I